Faradarmani, Term 1, Session 1, Section A. Hello everybody and welcome to the course on Faradarmani. I'm really excited to have you here. I've been meaning to do this course for the longest time, so I finally got around to doing it and I'm really excited. So let's just get underway. Faradarmani is a term which was coined by Muhammad Ali Tahiri, and it is based on more than 30 years of his research on the inter-universal or the collective consciousness. This consciousness is the consciousness that governs the entire universe. It has been referred to in many different cultures and in many different ways throughout history and in contemporary times. And the unique thing about this course is that it actually makes use of this consciousness in order to perform healing. This consciousness has unlimited loops or halqas, and just one of these halqas, which we will be referring to or discussing or analyzing in this term alone, is the halqa of Faradarmani, which is used to perform healing. We will perform healing on ourselves and on others, and through the transformations that happen through this healing, we will be able to achieve a great amount of personal development, which is the main goal of this course. And of course, once you achieve an understanding or once you connect to the whole as a part, then you will be able to realize an unlimited amount of potential within yourself and be able to achieve a great level of personal development, which I have seen in myself and also with many, many others. And this is based on more than 30 years of research in this area by Muhammad Ali Tahiri. Therefore, we will begin by discussing the theoretical side, and eventually we'll be able to get around to the practical side and be able to actually use this to help us and also help others and also achieve that self-development that we were just talking about. Now, in order to understand this viewpoint, in order to understand the inter-universal consciousness and what it is and how it can help us, we first have to look at the world from the viewpoint of inter-universalism. There were these three travelers who were traveling by elephants, and by nightfall they reached this village, and in this village the people had never seen an elephant before. So what they do is that they put their elephants inside a big barn, and it was dark and it was nighttime, and so the people in the village, they gathered around and they were all curious about what this elephant was. And since they've never seen an elephant before, these travelers, they decided to play a game. They said, okay guys, gather 4 of your wisest men, and each of them goes inside the room, goes inside the barn, and let's see what they can understand about the elephant. So these men, they line up and each goes into the barn by turn, and the first man, he goes inside, and the first thing he comes across, he feels the elephant's tail, and he comes running out and he says, hey everybody, the elephant is a rope. And then the second man, he goes inside and he grabs the elephant by the legs, and he says, and then he comes out and says, look guys, it's not a rope, it's a pillar, that's what it is. And the third man, he goes inside through the darkness, groping around, and he comes across the elephant's ear, and he comes running out and he says, it's neither a pillar nor a rope, the elephant is a giant fan. And the fourth man, he goes inside and he's groping around in the dark, and he grabs the elephant by the trunk, and he also comes out screaming, okay guys, I've discovered it, I know what it is, it's neither a fan nor a rope nor a pillar, the elephant is a big drain pipe. And then they start arguing back and forth, and little by little it turns into a pretty fierce argument. And these travelers, they they calm everybody down. Okay, guys, let's find out what the elephant is. Okay, stop arguing. So they give each of these men a torch, and each of these men, they go inside the room. The light from the torch illuminates the entire room, and they are finally, eventually able to see the elephant in its entirety. The human existence pretty much has the same story. Our existence is made of an unlimited amount of bodies in unlimited amounts of dimensions. And being able to understand all of these dimensions and how they are connected would be a very difficult task. Now, throughout history, people have always wanted to achieve an understanding of the human body in order to diagnose the illnesses and provide an effective treatment. Like in contemporary medicine, we have the human body is a collection of hormones and neurons and synapses and cells and bones. And a defect in any part of this area, in any of these areas, would in turn cause an illness. And in order to be able to fix the illness, then we would pretty much have to fix one of these areas. And also in acupuncture, we have the meridians that are running all throughout the body, and they transform chi energy. And an obstruction or a defect in any of these meridians would cause an illness. So in order to provide a cure, then we would have to remove the obstruction from these meridians. And we have countless other methods of treatment like homeopathy, Reiki, energy healing, the bioplasma field, polarity therapy, and so on and so on. Can we actually say that any of these guys are right or completely right? Well, we can't say they're completely right. They have understood part of the picture, but also we can't say that they're completely wrong because they couldn't grasp the whole picture, and we can't really expect to understand the whole picture because our existence is unlimited and there are interconnected aspects which are hidden from our mind's eye. So from the viewpoint of inter-universalism, we come to the conclusion that a defect in any one of the unlimited aspects of the human body would cause an illness. Now, how possibly could one be able to diagnose a defect in any one of these many interconnected dimensions and aspects of the body and be able to perform a healing? Well, of course, this could not be performed by a human, and all this healing could only be performed by something superhuman, and that is the inter-universal consciousness. Therefore, the aim of this course is to research the effects of the inter-universal consciousness. So what you will be doing on your part as a student is to research the effect of this consciousness on yourself and on others, and we will be able to reach a conclusion of what it is and where it is coming from. Now, you may have heard that this is a mystical discipline. First of all, we need to have a definition of the meaning of mysticism. Throughout this course, we have some special terminologies that we will specifically not be translating into English for the very basic fact that a lot of meaning gets lost in translation. And in order to preserve the intended meaning of the word, we will be using our own terminology. And of course, before I use the word, I will be providing you with the English equivalent of the word. And of course, I will provide a glossary within the module so that you could refer to it anytime you don't understand a word. And from the very first time, I will use I will use the English word and then explain what it means and provide you the literal translation, and we will be using the Farsi word from then on. One of these words is mysticism or Irfan. Before we discuss what Irfan is and what it aims to do, we need to discuss two steps of logic and ishq. Logic is the step of quantity, and the step of love is the step of quality. On the step of logic, we have the realm of device, the realm of tools, which are used to achieve certain things. We have the main devices and we have the intermediary devices. The main devices are contemplation and intellectual reflection, skill and technique, science and knowledge, advice and counsel, reasoning and rationalization. The intermediary devices are thought, imagination, mental visualization, effort and endeavor, desire and will, suggestion and repetition, chanting and mantra. Now, the main devices, which we just discussed, are science and knowledge, and the intermediary devices are tools which help us on the level of the main devices to achieve many things. For example, if we want to perform a very complicated task or we want to acquire a very complex skill, like for example martial arts, then we'll probably be using our imagination, controlling our thoughts through meditation, through mantras, in order to perform those techniques that we have learned on the step of logic. For example, we want to design an engine, we would be using our mental visualization in order to make this design on the level of the main devices. And then we have the step of love. On the step of love is the realm which is free of device. In this realm, we have passion and yearning, spiritual rapture and joyfulness, amazement and bewilderment, compassion and affection, excitement and ecstasy, sacrifice and devotion, love and affection. Now, on this level, there are no tools, there are no devices. That's why we call it the realm which is free of device. These are completely abstract notions, and they cannot be measured, they cannot be quantified, and we can only witness their effects. Now, of course, you can't have one without the other. You can't go to the moon just by being passionate about it. Of course, you would have to, first of all, be on the step of logic. You would have to use tools and devices. You have to make calculations. You would have to gather a team of scientists, and they would have to make all of the measurements. You would have to gather up the resources, get funding, make your spaceship with the material that you have procured, and then once you have gathered all of this into one package, then you can send your rocket to the moon. Hopefully it'll get there. We can't have reasoning and rationalization on the step of love. You can't create passion and yearning in someone through technique and science. You can't perform certain experiments in order to induce somebody to fall in love. You can't say, for example, okay, I'm going to fall in love at 2 p.m. today, or you can't reason somebody for falling out of love. You can't have someone recite a poem through science and technique. It must all come from the heart. Maulana, he says in his poem, logic stands on wooden stilts, the wood that wavers, tips, and tilts. Okay, we will be referring a lot to Persian poetry because This discipline is deeply rooted in the Persian culture and the long Persian heritage of Irfan. And the gift that has been given to us by these great scholars and poets and mystics and philosophers. And throughout the course, we will be supporting our theories with these poems, and we will also be explaining what they actually mean, and we will be actually decoding them in order to find out the hidden meaning in these words and what these great scholars have been trying to say for millennia. So, for the sake of argument, Maulana, he says, logic stands on wooden stilts, the wood that wavers, tips and tilts. Hafez, he says in his poem, if our fellow student thou remain, wash white the leaves, for in the book love's art is not. Sa'ib Tabrizi, he says, that silent spot is unutterable. The first step is to forget all your books and learning. Now, this refers to one of the most ancient arguments or quarrels of history, and that is the argument between the heart and the mind. What these poets are actually saying is that they are not refuting logic, they are not saying that it is useless, but in some sense, when you want to perform something, when you want to achieve an understanding, when you want to understand an insight on the step of love, when you want to be amazed and bewildered, when you want to have ecstasy and excitement, love and affection, the mind cannot be a good companion because the mind is very limited in its scope and all it sees is a very limited horizon. And in one step, you must leave the mind behind. And let it be that these poets were some of the most renowned scholars, scientists, philosophers, and professors of their time. And by no means were they small people, but they have, through their learning and through their insights, they have come to achieve an understanding that it is not all logic that can help us in moving forward in a sense of staying happy and being prosperous. It is, and the mind is sometimes a barrier when it comes to the workings of the heart. So in Irfan, there are always two aspects to everything, and that is the aspect of quality and that is the aspect of quantity. You cannot be on the step of love without first passing through the step of logic. And that is what we are trying to do. Right now, we are explaining everything through logic and reasoning on the step of logic. And soon enough, we will be going on to the step of love to experience the realm which is free of device. So in Irfan, there are always two aspects to everything. That is the quality and the quantity of it. For example, if you compare the performance of two employees who work at a company, they both clock in at 9 and they both clock out at 5. They both work the same hours on terms of measurement, but on the level of quality, of course, they are not equal. One can produce better quality of work in the 8 hours, and one is not providing the same quality. So, Irfan, what we are trying to do is we are trying to examine the qualitative aspect of our life. On the realm of no device, there is no practice, there are no mantras, there are no instruments, no chanting, no meditation, nothing. Everything is performed on the level of quality, and Like I said, again, this is the level which is free, this is the realm which is free of device. In short, we will be performing alchemy. Now, alchemy, there's a slight let's clarify the slight misunderstanding on alchemy. According to Wikipedia, alchemy is a philosophical and proto-scientific tradition practiced throughout Europe, Egypt, and Asia. It aimed to purify, mature, and perfect certain objects. People performed alchemy in the Middle Ages through sorts of magic or chemistries to turn sort of coal into gold, for example. Of course, this would never happen, and it was just a sort of a facade. But the real alchemy, which was referred to by these scholars throughout history, is the art of turning the human existence into something valuable. Here we have Omar Khayyam in his poem. He says, "The grape that can with logic absolute the 72 jarring sects confute, the subtle alchemist that in a trice life's leaden metal into gold transmute." So Irfan, in another sense, is the art of increasing the value of the human existence through what we have just examined.
This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue pill, the story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes. Remember, all I'm offering is the truth, nothing more.
There are two sides of existence. One is the reality of existence, and what is the truth of existence. This is what we call the coin of existence. The reality of existence is an event or an object, something that has happened or is happening. The truth of existence is the study of the cause of occurrence, the study of the whyness or the philosophy of occurrence, and the study of the quality of occurrence. Say, for example, a stationary fan. Now, while the fan is stationary, what we can see are the blades. Now, as soon as you turn the fan on, the blades start spinning faster and faster. Then you're not going to see the blades anymore. You're just going to be a blur of the blades, or what is now a circle, which has been formed as the fast movement of the brains, because our minds cannot comprehend things that are faster than 24 frames per second, so we see it as a blur. Now we have a question here. Which one is real and which one is the truth? Is the circle real? Yes, the circle is real because it has happened to our eyes. The circle has happened as a result of the fast-moving blades. Now, what is the truth of the circle? The truth of the circle would be the blades. So the circle is the reality, and the blades are now the truth of the circle. Are we real? What is the truth of our existence? The human body is made of cells, and the cells are made of DNA, and the DNA is a collection of molecules, and the molecules are atoms which are binded together. Now, if we were to look at the atom on the scale, if we were to blow up the atom to the scale of a football field, and if we were to consider the electron cloud which is circling the nucleus as the limits of the bleachers of this big football field, then the actual size of the nucleus in the middle would be pretty much the size of a football. And all the space in between is just a vacuum. And if we were to stop the movement of these electrons, then we would be left with nothing but a small football. Going inside the nucleus and going inside the protons and the neutrons which make up the nucleus, we would be dealing with a similar concept, and that is the vacuum which is now encircling the quarks which are inside the neutrons, the protons. And theoretical physics to this date has confirmed that the quarks are in fact followed by strings or superstrings. According to Wikipedia, the superstring theory is an attempt to explain all of the particles and fundamental forces of nature in one theory by modeling them as vibrations of tiny supersymmetric strings. So the world is actually made of motion. It is these moving strings that give life to the quarks, and these quarks that give life to the neutron, the proton, and also going on to the electrons and the molecular bonds, and what we can see as the manifestation of the world we see it as today. Thus, the universe is a virtual reality. Going back to the concept of the blades and the fan, we can now see that what we are witnessing right now is a reality, and there's a truth behind this, which is the movement of the strings. So the world is made of motion. Again, quoting from the Matrix here, the Matrix is a world that has been pulled over your eyes to blind you from the truth. Now that we've come to this understanding, we see through the poems of the great mystics of history that they have already witnessed these events through their insights millennia ago. This is not something new. This is something which was discovered long ago by mystics through insights and through their connection to the whole. And this is how they're able to achieve this understanding and achieve this awareness of what is actually happening and the truth behind the reality of existence. In particular, we will be discussing the mystics of Persia and what they have seen and how they have conveyed these insights through their poems. In one poem, he says, "Every article of the universe is bursting to speak out. How can it do so without a tongue?" So this particular poet, he has actually witnessed the particles, and he has seen the movement, and he has actually heard this hum of excitement in each particle, and he has expressed it in his poem. Hafez, he says, "On the day when the truth shall be known, embarrassed shall be the traveler who had gazed at the veil." Now here Hafez, he is referring to the veil, or the Matrix as we have come to understand it today. And he has actually seen the veil he refers to the reality of existence as the veil which is covering up the greater truth behind it. Maulana, he says, seek the knowledge that soothes your soul before you forfeit this worldly mold. Leave the dead which shows as life, seek the life which does not die. So here Maulana is also referring to an underlying fact of the reality of what we can see and what we perceive as being alive. But Maulana says that this is not the true life, this is dead, and the truth is what is actually behind this that we are seeing here. Omar Khayyam, in his poem, he says, "The secret's eternal, neither you know nor I. And the answers to the riddle, neither you know nor I. Behind the veil there is much talk about us. Why? When the veil falls, neither you remain nor I." So here we see that there are some terminologies that are being repeated by these poets. Hafez, he refers to the veil, and Khayyam, he is also specifically referring to a veil. So there is a similar language here. Khayyam, in his other poem, he says, "Do you know why I don't repent? It's because my drinking is not sacrilege. The dwellers of the veil are forbidden to drink, but I shall bear the sins of those who drink of the truth." So Khayyam here also refers to the veil, and now he's referring to drink and wine. Now, at first glance, one would think that these poets were actually very fond of drinking and getting drunk, and they were very serious about the material pleasures. But the truth of the matter is, like I said before, these were some of the most renowned scholars of their time. I mean, Omar Khayyam, in his time, he had made a calendar which was according to the movement of the stars and the celestial bodies, and this calendar was so precise that it is still being used today, and it is one of the most accurate calendars to this date. So it would be far from the truth to consider this man as somebody who would be referring to wine and drink in the real sense of the word. So we actually see that these men, there is some sort of a code behind this terminology. They are using some sort of a special code, because in their day science didn't have that terminology which they could express their ideas, and so they had to use special terminology in order to explain what they had seen through their witness-like insights and what they had discovered from the world of existence. Now, we will be decoding these encrypted poems in order to understand their viewpoint on the world, on the universe and the world, and how it could actually help us to also understand the truth of existence. These codes can be explained in various classifications. Hafez, he says, "O wine bearer, brighten my cup with the wine. O minstrel, say good fortune is now mine. The face of my beloved is reflected in my cup. Little you know why with wine I always myself align." So here we have the wine bearer, the pitcher, the cup, and the wine. Maulana, he says, The language of the particle is dance, and it can't express itself but an elegant dance. So here we also have a series of repeated codes on the terms of the maestro, the instrument, music, and dance. Omar Khayyam, in his poem, he says, "The moving finger writes and, having writ, moves on, nor all thy pity nor wit shall lure it back to cancel half a line, nor all thy tears wash out a word of it." Here we also have a string of codes which refer to the writer, the pen, the story, and the words. According to this concept, we have offered our own interpretation of what each of these codes would mean in their own classification. So if we were to consider the wine bearer or the maestro or the writer as the main source of all the other things that come after it, we would be referring to this as God. Now, God here would not have a very specific meaning. We are not referring to a special type of God. We're just referring to the word which is used to describe the source of all of this terminology. So the wine bearer, the writer, and the maestro would be referred to as God. Now, the pitcher, the pen, and the instrument would be referred to as the consciousness that we had discussed earlier, the consciousness that governs the universe. This consciousness gives birth to the laws. These laws, or the cup, or the music, or the story. Now, these laws are the laws which were created from the Big Bang. These are the laws of the universe. This is, for example, the law of universal gravitation, the constant of light, the pi sequence, the Fibonacci sequence, the law of relativity, the laws of motion, all of these physical laws which were discovered by humans. Through what? Through the numbers. The last part in this category, or mathematics, which is the language of these laws. So if we are using mathematics, or the numbers, to discover these laws, and by understanding the laws, we can understand how the universe works through the consciousness, and through the consciousness we can understand the source of it all. So, in a sense, the universe is made of consciousness. Going back to these poems, now we can actually understand what these Gnostics were trying to say and what they are referring to as the wine bearer being God, and the pitcher being the consciousness, and the cup being our existence or mankind, and the wine here refers to the awareness which is achieved as a result of becoming a cup, of becoming a container for the consciousness to pour into it, and as a result of drinking this wine, we rejoice, we become drunk with excitement and rapture and passion and yearning, and we want more of this wine, we want more of this awareness, we want more, to have more understandings, more insights. And then we have the maestro and the instrument. This refers to, like we were explaining before, the superstring theory, and the maestro is strumming on his, say, for example, harp, and the superstrings are giving movement to these particles, and the music, which is created by the movement of these particles, creates the dance or the manifestation of the universe that we see before our eyes. And the writer and the pen and the story and the words, which we refer to the writer as God, who is writing the story of the universe through his pen, through the pen, and the words coming out, which is the manifestation of what we can see today. So we've been mixing science a lot into these theories, and we would like to first make a distinction here in that science seeks to discuss the quantitative aspects of the observable universe, whereas Irfan seeks to discuss the why and the how and the philosophy of existence. So moving back to the coin of existence, science analyzes the occurrence or the reality of the universe, of existence, while Irfan seeks to analyze the hidden truth behind this reality, and it seeks to understand why we are here, where we came from, and where we are going, and what we are doing here. Science and Irfan do not contradict each other at all. It is like the step of logic and the step of love. They complement each other. You cannot understand Irfan without first understanding or being on the step of logic. And on the other hand, here we can also argue that Irfan is the basis of science. Intuitive discovery is intuitive insight is the pillar or the foundation of science. In one of his famous quotes, Einstein says, "There is no logical way to the discovery of these elemental laws. There is only the way of intuition, which is helped by a feeling for the order lying behind the appearance." So actually, Einstein, he first had the insight for the theory of relativity while he was riding a train and looking out the window and observing the movement. And he then went on and established his theory through the use of physics and mathematics. So here we can clearly argue that that the foundation of science is actually insight. Also, we can say the same thing about the discovery of the law of universal gravitation, where in the story that the apple falls on Newton's head and he gets this idea and he seeks to explain it through mathematics. So what can we possibly gain from with the truth or the order which is lying behind this seemingly chaotic truth? Well, what happens first is that it helps us to discover our true potential. And the only way that we can be happy is to know our purpose in life. And once you realize your purpose, then everything, every word that you say, everything that you do becomes meaningful, and therefore it would lead to a more fruitful and a more satisfying life. You are hidden from yourself, and there lies within you a treasure should you discover it. Like I said, we are discussing, first of all, the theories that lie behind the practice, and eventually very soon, we will be able to have the opportunity to use the consciousness to be able to achieve this understanding on the level of our own personal insight. Here, we must make a very clear distinction because mysticism always comes with its various connotations. We have the Irfan for perfection or Kamal or transcendence, and then we have the Irfan of power. What is the difference? The Irfan of power seeks to exert the dominance of one human over another. The Irfan of power is the use of sorcery, of witchcraft, and spells and magic in order to gain dominance, in order to gain special powers and exert influence over other people for personal gain and power. Other manifestations of this is mind reading, fortune telling, and so on. The Irfan of transcendence or Kamal seeks to show the path to growth and perfection. It seeks to explain the philosophy of existence, and this is what we are endorsing in this course. This is what we are seeking, and these are the ends to which we are moving in this course. So in this course, we will be only discussing the Irfan of Kamal and how we can use it to give our life meaning and purpose. So please do not confuse these two levels of mysticism. One is completely related to power and influencing others, while the Irfan that we are seeking here is solely for the purpose of achieving an understanding and for the purpose of personal growth and well-being and health. Now here I have a question. What is the most satisfying job in the world? What can you do which is the most satisfying? What is the most satisfying thing in the world? Well, according to some of the greatest people that have ever lived, let's find out. Mahatma Gandhi, he says, the best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others. Martin Luther King Jr., he says, everybody can be great because anybody can serve. You don't have to have a college degree to serve. You don't have to make your subject and verb agree to serve. You only need a heart full of grace, a soul generated by love. Mother Teresa, she says, the simple path. Silence is prayer. Prayer is faith. Faith is love. Love is service. The fruit of service is peace. Khalil Gibran, he says, I slept and I dreamed that life is all joy. I woke and I saw that life is all service. I served and I saw that service is joy. So how can we perform this service? Should we go around giving food or money to people? Well, that's one way of service. Another way is to be able to help people through the consciousness or through the credit that we are going to be given by this consciousness. And through helping other people, we will be able to experience the world outside of the self. And once you experience the world which is outside of your own problems in order to help others, you realize that your problems were pretty much irrelevant or even nonsensical in relation to others. And this type of service creates a sense of mutual respect for our fellow human beings, which is a great source of personal development. There are two types of connecting to the consciousness. One is on the personal level and one is the collective method. The source of the consciousness, or God, communicates through the consciousness to us. And this consciousness has been referred to in history by some religions as the angel Gabriel or the Holy Ghost. In Jeremiah, it says, "You will seek me and find me when you search for me with all your heart." Deuteronomy, it says, "But from there you will seek the Lord your God, and you will find him if you search for him with all your heart and all your soul." In the Quran, Kafir, it says, "Call upon me and I will respond to you." So here we see that there is a response mechanism in the universe which is designed to respond to people who seek out the truth. In quoting again from the Matrix, it says, "The answer is out there, Neo, and is looking for you, and it will find you if you want it to." Now, on this level, these quotes are referring to the personal connection, which requires a lot of ardor and it requires complete hopelessness. You must be completely hopeless of all other help, and you reach a level of selflessness in which you cannot hope to receive any help from anybody or anything, and you just call out. And we can overcome that resistance and actually reach an understanding of the truth. In other words, receive a reply. So on this level, can anybody just call out and receive a reply? This is very tricky because not all callings are the same. I mean, we have one person who is completely desperate and there's nothing that he is clinging to, and he's completely selfless, and the truth is what he's just seeking, and he just wants help. And this person receives a reply much faster than the person who, it's just something casual. Hafiz was one of these people who had famously waited for 40 years, and he had this sort of intense yearning to know the truth and achieve these insights. And he had done this, and it took him 40 years to actually come to achieve this level, this great level that he is at. And in one of his poems, he says, "At the time of writing this poem, the bird of my mind was captivated by ardor." That is the connection to the consciousness on the personal level. What about us? What about us normal people? I mean, you can't really expect somebody to wait that long or to have that much ardor or yearning. We can connect to the consciousness on the collective level, whereas the credit is given on the person who has already achieved this, and it is passed on to another person through the mechanism that we will be explaining in the later session. In Matthew, it says, "For where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, there am I among them." Al Imran in the Quran, it says, "And hold firmly to the rope of Allah altogether and do not become divided." Sadi in his poem, he says, "The locks of the beloved's hair are the loops of adventure. Whoever is not in this circle is unaware of this venture." And once we are connected to this consciousness, then we have what we call a sort of a salary, or the awareness or the insights that we receive from this consciousness. And through this income, then we have the option of helping others, and that is the charity that we were referring to earlier. As for material income, well, one has to work to earn a living. This was true for all prophets or great men, for example. Gandhi was a lawyer, Moses was a sheep herder, Jesus was a carpenter, Muhammad was a merchant. And we also have the divine income, which I just referred to earlier, and we have the option to help others through this divine income. In this diagram, me would refer to the person who is connected to the inter-universal consciousness, or the person who has credit in the network. You is anybody who is brought into this connection or this ittisal. So if we were to be performing this, then me would be me, of course, and you would be you, or the person who I have extended a hand and brought into this loop or this halqa. And at the top of this halqa or this circle is the consciousness, which was already explained at length. Now, what is the prerequisite? What are the conditions for achieving a connection? Well, nothing. There is no faith required. You cannot expect someone to have faith in something that they haven't been tested and tried. It is not related to race. It is not related to age. You can do this, you can perform this on a newborn baby or the oldest person alive. It is not relevant to the gender. It is not relevant to their philosophy or their belief in life. None of this. But there is one very important requirement, and that is that we must become an impartial observer. Like I said at the beginning, from now on, we are going to be researchers, and as researchers, we must be completely impartial, and we must call it like it is. We mustn't be judging. Now, shortly, we will be performing the ittisal, and before we perform the ittisal, I would like to give you a few pointers about how this is performed and the ideal physical and mental states which are required in order to have the best experience possible. The preferred physical state for performing the ittisal is any physical position that you are comfortable with. This could be sitting down, lying down, standing up. It doesn't matter. You must be comfortable in that position. We prefer to have the eyes closed, and this is done in order to avoid any distraction. But like I said, the scanning will be performed regardless of your physical or mental state. The only reason why we are emphasizing that we must be in a certain physical state and a mental state is in order to, like I said, have the best experience possible. So, sitting down, lying down, and eyes closed. The preferred mental state is that we must be, first of all, in a witness-like mindset, as I explained earlier. We are not performing any kind of meditation, so we won't be having any mantras. There will be no imagination. We'll try not to guide our mind in a certain path. We will try to be as impartial as possible and try to keep a clear mind. Try not to have any interruptions, any mental interruptions, not going to the past, not going to the future, making plans for the day or whatever. Just clear your mind of whatever it is that you've experienced during the day or the week, and just be here now, in the moment. And basically just observe what is happening like a researcher. Just observe the experience and try not to interpret anything. As we continue, I would like to have your undivided attention in the next 5 minutes, where we will be performing the ittisal and you will be connected to the inter-universal consciousness. Okay, so just sit down be relaxed, close your eyes, you keep them open if you like, and clear your mind of whatever it is, and just observe the experience. Okay, I'll see you in 5 minutes. Okay, thank you. Now, coming out of that, if you witness anything or you experienced anything, you felt anything, please write it down in the weblog, and please share your experience. Like I said, we are researching here, and the more feedback we receive with this regard, the more fruitful our experience and our research will be. So please share your experience right now. Any feeling, any thought, any experience which was out of the ordinary, which you wouldn't normally have if you were in this doing this on any other day. And this is a sign that you have experienced being scanned by the inter-universal consciousness. If you didn't feel anything, if you didn't experience anything, don't worry. This could be because of a few factors, and those factors could be a distracted mind, perhaps. If you are experiencing depression, then depression is a major factor which does not allow you to fully experience the ittisal and the scan. Another reason could be a mental lock. Another reason could be simply that you were not being an impartial observer, or your mind was basically trying to make assumptions on the experience or what is going on. These experiences could be physical experiences, like as if you feel like your heart rate has gone up, or you feel as if your lungs were being scanned, or your head is feeling heavy or light, or you might have a pain in your stomach. You experience certain energy going through your body, or exiting your body, or entering your body. And just for your information, from the beginning of this session, you were automatically being scanned by the consciousness. So even from the beginning, if you were experiencing something out of the ordinary, that is a sign that you were being scanned. And like I said before, please share your experience. Don't worry if it's weird. Anything out of the ordinary would be